Okay, welcome to our parent webinar. This is covering using Gmail with your child. So I'm your presenter. I'm Wes Ryan. I'm an instructional technology specialist here in Northeast Independent School District. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions regarding Gmail or any of the topics we cover. My email is down below here, wryan@neist.net. And with me silently is my moderator, Lauren Snyder. She's also an ITS or an instructional technology specialist. So if you have any questions, feel free to funnel those through the chat, and Lauren should be on top of that for that Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. So here in instructional technology, we always like to communicate our mission and our vision, so people kind of understand what we do and what our purpose is. So our mission is to empower educators to innovate instruction so students have the skills to thrive in society. And our vision is that students will find value and meaning in the work they are doing. This is going to be shared with you, this being the presentation. So if you would like to connect with us, which you may already be doing, but if you'd like to connect with us, you can do so directly on this slide and a slide at the end. We have our social media links down below. And so feel free to use those resources. So here's some learning outcomes for this presentation that we've kind of established here. So hopefully at the end of this session, you'll, number one, understand the basics and how to access your students' Gmail account. So you have a kind of a general understanding of some of these pieces in Gmail. Number two, be comfortable navigating some of the basic features in Gmail to help your child become more independent. That's a goal, right? That's always a goal in parenting, becoming more independent, organized, and secure with Gmail or this tool. And of course, this last piece, we'll touch upon this just briefly, but have access to some pointers on proper etiquette to help assist in educating your child and using and becoming better communicators. So I think etiquette's one of those key pieces, especially when we look at email. All right, so let's get started with these key pieces. There are two ways that students can access Gmail, the most common ways. Obviously, Gmail is one of the most widely used email platforms on the planet. So there's long since been apps for Gmail through Apple and Android. So there's an app for that. And of course, our students on our campuses typically would access Gmail through their devices like their laptops. And if you simply go to google.com, you'll see what we call, or what Google calls the waffle, that square of squares. And when you click that waffle, it expands this window and it reveals an option for Gmail. Now, if you don't see that, or your student does not see that option for Gmail, there's a little more button down here. They can click that to expand, and then they can find Gmail there. So these are the two main ways to access Gmail. And of course, you do want to be using the Chrome web browser. So you want to make sure that your student, your child, or children are using the Chrome web browser. Obviously, that's going to work best for any of those Google products like Gmail. So here's some general account information. It's just kind of good to know. So both middle and high school Gmail accounts have the ability now to send and receive email from in and out of the district. With all things COVID, this has been very useful because previously we didn't have that ability with middle school kids, but now we do, and it's been helpful because now the kids are doing a lot of online learning, or they're doing their instruction from home. They have the ability to email, and the parents, such as yourselves, can email your children and send reminders and do those kinds of things. So it's been very helpful to kind of help support the communication piece with our students across the district. So that's a good piece. This has been a win for us. It's a great way for students to communicate with teachers. Sometimes it's the most necessary piece to communicate with teachers. And you let your child or children know, I'm going to start communicating with you on Gmail, and maybe you can kind of help this, right? Help with this piece. I'm going to help give you some guidance. So I'm going to start using your Gmail and communication via email, because I think most of us still use email maybe for work, even if just for work. So, email can serve many essential functions, and it's a great skill to carry into college and in the real world. This will help keep tabs on their use and give you some insight on how they actually communicate. So maybe you can offer some guidance with that piece. So lots of great pieces when using Gmail to consider. So I did include a link here. It's Google's A to Z resources, and I'll include this later towards the end of the presentation. So when you do have access to this presentation, you can click that link and it'll take you to the actual Google page where you can actually see an index of all things Google. Okay, so this is a little piece on security. So it's always good to have those pieces in check. And this works for any Google account, not just the ones here in Northeast. And so just some things you should have on your radar. So again, this can be useful for your personal account if you have a Gmail account, and also work with our NEISD accounts. But there's as a way to check for passwords to make sure that your passwords to par. You can see which devices have had access to your account, and even a security checkup. So if I click on password checkup, it says you can basically click this link and it'll go through the process and look at the security of your password. That's one piece you can kind of delve into if necessary. There's also this devices with access. So if a student thinks, well, I think my account was opened up, you can actually check that. You can go to that link and you can say, okay, by clicking here, I can see who has had access to my child's account. Maybe it's a home computer, something like that. And so these are some devices I've actually accessed with my personal account, and so I can kind of see the names of those devices and verify. Well, yeah, maybe my account wasn't accessed. Maybe that's not the problem. And of course, you have a security checkup. You can look at to make sure that you've don't have any issues or incidents if that's ever a question. And of course, if there's ever any question or you're unsure of any of the security features or security issues that may happen with your child's account, you can always call the help desk, and a technician will actually look into that account. And that number is right here, 210-356-HELP. So that's always a good go-to by default. So on that note, spam, if you see your child's account that has some spam email, just make sure you kind of point this out. You can move those, instead of deleting those, you can always move those emails to spam. And so it's easy to do so. You can right click an email in the inbox and you have this option to move to spam. And once you do this, that spam email will automatically be deleted in 30 days. So, and this is sorry, let me move this right real quick here. Sorry, I'm using two screens. Here we go. So, it's pretty interesting to think about this, but some students have attempted to maybe move a teacher assignment from a teacher's account into spam or a teacher's email. Like, I don't know what happened to that email. So if that's the case, we have a block on that now, which is kind of handy. So any ISD accounts that are sent to spam, that basically gets blocked, and an investigation a ticket's opened up for an investigation to ensure that there's not any hacking or anything that's of ill intent going on. And so that's a good little safeguard that we've put in place for schools. So, but it is important, like I said, to know that actual spam is best handled this way. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this piece because this webinar is not really about how to draft an email, but it's just important to understand what these pieces are. If you're sending an email, there's some basic functions like you would have with any type of email account. You have control of the font and the style of the body of the message. And it's just some basic overviews of what is in that inbox. So if you kind of want to know at a quick glance, what does it look like when I'm sending an email? For reference, maybe you're sitting down to talk with your child. This is what it looks like to send an email. And those are the basic features. And this is what it looks like when you're replying to the email. And those are some basic features if you ever need that little how-to. So it's something just kind of important to include in there. Here we go. Sorry, I'm getting my screen back. So on this piece, I really want to start looking more at the organization in Gmail. So how we can make life simple with these options. So we're going to look at starring, labels, archiving email, tasks, keep, and calendar. And I have a generic account I'm going to be using to kind of show some of these pieces as we go along. And again, here's another little quick cheat sheet before we jump into that. When you actually get into your inbox, something you may find useful. These are some of the quick buttons we're going to be using. When you click on an email, these buttons up here will appear. And this kind of tells you what they do. And I'm going to go over some of these buttons. This will appear, these icons will appear only when you check an email. So if you're like, well, I don't see those icons on my Gmail account or my son or daughter's email account, it's because you haven't clicked the email and you'll see these icons that appear. So it's kind of nice and very user-friendly in the fact that once you actually click on an email, you'll see what's available as far as your options for settings and things like that and tasks. And of course, we'll talk about this little sidebar here as we go through the presentation and what those great features are. Oops, sorry, I did not advance my slide. I meant to do that. This is the cheat sheet I was referencing right here. So sorry about that, folks. So these are the icons, and these are the key pointers I was referencing here. So when you click on an email, these are your icons right here that will appear, and these also will appear once you've selected an email. And that's what these pieces are. And over here are those little great features we're going to look into. There, I'll advance the slide this time here. Okay, so this first piece is just on starting emails. I'm not going to look at the account for this one because it's pretty self-explanatory. And so with these things like starring, I recommend to sit down and have a conversation with your child or children so they can kind of take a look at not just this feature, but all the features that we're looking over today. They may likely know these features exist, but that conversation can focus on how to best use them. So use some guiding questions with them. What do you think the best use of this feature is? Are we starring everything or just select emails we can use as reminders or for easy access later to something important? So what do you think? So ask your child, what do you think? How do you think you can best use that? You know how we're always constantly coaching and we're looking at things to help that spark that thinking in our children. So something as simple as that can lead to some actual thought in the process, and who knows, they might make some great considerations, you know. So, and then say, okay, how's it working with that? Are you able to star some certain things? And if that's not working, maybe we can look at some other features that works. So on this piece, I'm going to show you creating and finding labels. So we're going to actually look into a Gmail account. It's actually really simple to do. And a big question that people often ask is, you know, in other email programs, you know, you have folders, but in Gmail, you know, you use, you know, labels. So they're like, where are the folders? Well, Gmail actually uses labels to categorize your emails. So labels are like folders, but with a little twist. You can apply several labels to an email, and later find the email by clicking any of its labels from the left panel. So if I insert a label rather, that label will show up here on the left-hand side. So with all my other labels. And what's nice, if I do a label, if I choose to right-click or add a label, if I select an email right here, I can then click this little tab, and then this pulls up. I can create a new label, or I can manage my labels. And then if, say, I have a label coming in for an assignment, I can go through for a certain teacher, and I can say, oh, that's from Mr. Ryan. I can check that box, and that will be labeled. So this may be a really useful way to kind of help organize that email that comes in. And again, this is kind of Google's way of replacing folders. If you want to create a label or a new label, you can do so from here, from the tab, or you can go down here and click on Create New Label. Let's see here. One other point I wanted to bring up here, looking at my notes, there's actually a way to set a filter to filter for labels. We're not going to go into that in this session, but it's important to note that you can actually assign a filter to actually label emails as they come in. So it doesn't have to be manual. So that is a possibility, just something to put on your radar. And also we can do some things with labels, including color coding. So let's take a look real quick, and I'll show you how this looks in our inbox. My email account is loading. Here it is. So I'm going to bring this over for you to see. And you should be viewing my generic email account here. So if I click on, as you can see, I have labels right here that are color coded. And so if I want to, let's just say I want to apply a label right here. I have this test review coming in and I can click on it like this and do a label, or I can even go back to the inbox and I can check the box like this and I can click label. And I can do a predetermined label this way. And so maybe it's right here for math. Or like I said previously, I can go to more. Oops, if I drag down, I can go to more and I can create a label right here. So what's great is once you've created your labels, so again, I can create a new label there or on the side. Once I've created a label, it'll appear when I click on the label icon. And so I can assign that from this bell. And what's great is I can also color code this label. And so it's a little tricky sometimes when you want to color code. It took me a while to do this when I was trying to set this up. But when you click on a tab, you really need to see those three bars, the three dots. And sometimes that's hard to get to, but just know that there are three dots right here on any given label. And when you click on those three dots, you can actually change the color of that label or remove that label. You can even do a custom color, but there's plenty of colors to choose from, right? So this may be helpful in tracking, and I'm gonna go back now because this is all my stuff, all my email rather for math. Here's all my email for science that have been labeled. And again, this is taking the place of folders and most other email platforms. And here's my general inbox. So those labels can be used for a lot of different things. Maybe you want to track those pieces. And again, you can also set up a filter to automatically label certain emails. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to filter those through Lauren, and she's going to handle that Q&A at this point. All right. Here is another way. Let me move out of here real quick. Here's another way to look at labels. I've included this slide too. Oops, let me get back over here. You can also, there's a number of ways to do the labels, and I think I pretty much took care of that right there. Let me move on. Okay, so on this piece, archiving an email. This is great if you want to clean up that inbox, you want that email to kind of go away. You can actually use this feature right here. It's the archive icon, and what's great about that, it just takes it out of plain sight, out of your inbox. And a lot of people will archive, or students sometimes. Here's the caveat with this piece. The cautionary piece is if you use that archive piece, or your student uses the archive piece, like, I don't know where that went. It went away. It's gone. They actually need to click on all mail on the left-hand side. And I'll show you this here in just a second. And once you click on all mail, you're going to be able to see everything, not just your inbox and the labeled emails. You're going to see everything that's there, even snoozed emails. Which you can basically put an email, make it go away, come back at a later time. But if you click on all mail, that should find everything that you have available in your Gmail account. And of course, once you're there, all mail, if you ever wanted to go back into your inbox, there's an inbox icon that will pull up when you're in all mail. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like. There we go. Let me bring this back over for you. Okay, so let's just say I want to archive this email, or I've accidentally archived that piece right there. It's gone away. I didn't want it in my inbox. And if like I said before, if I want to go and find that email, I can go to more, and I can go to all mail right here. And this is going to give me everything that's in my account. And I can see the ones that are still in my inbox because they, by default, automatically have this inbox label. So if there is an email that does not have that label, like this one right here I just clicked, I can actually check this box and I can return it to the inbox. Now it has the inbox label. Now I'm going to see that in my inbox because I clicked that. So again, this sometimes can be confusing because the student will accidentally click an archive button when they have an email checked. Like, where'd it go? It's gone. I can't find it. But they can always search for it as well. There's the search box at the top of your inbox, and you can search for it. Or all mail, very helpful resource, right? Or very helpful how-to right here to get to all your mail. and then everything will show up. All right. So that is archiving. Move this over here. So there's some really great tools outside of just the basic features that can really help with that organizational piece, and they're great. And Google thought of some really clever solutions for this. And this first part is going to be on calendar. So I'm going to bring this back over here so you can actually see what this looks like. These are the tools I'm referring to right here on the side. And as you click them, they'll appear. And so I'm going to start off with the calendar feature. So let me just move this down real quick here on my other side. Okay, so this is a great way to check for assignments. Now in Google Classroom, Classroom is going to automatically post any associated assignments, not announcements, but assignments to your child's Google Calendar. And so what's great about that is those will appear on the right-hand side. So all they have to do is click on this calendar, and anything that's been posted will show up here on the right. And then they can click on that to access the information. So this is just a really great way to keep track of that piece. So, maybe you want to look at this calendar piece and this function and say, hey, besides email being useful for communication, maybe you can use that piece with calendar to kind of keep organized with those important events in your life. Maybe you have soccer practice, maybe you have that band performance, whatever it may be. Make sure you're adding that to your calendar. So I know for me, my son's starting middle school next year. And so these are some of the conversations I'm going to have with him, because I'm really trying to empower him to do these things. And so that could be a really useful piece. And trust me, I'm going to be talking to him about calendar and the uses of calendar and staying on top of things, because there's also an app for that as well that you can have installed on their smartphone. And so, and your phone, and you can have access, you can have shared access to that. And so as long as they're using these pieces and you're training them, you're helping to train them to use those pieces, I think they'll be very advantageous. So this is basically in a nutshell, a really useful, quick access to calendar. And you can also even create an event right here on the fly, which is great. So the next piece I wanted to show you, and I'll just stay in this window, is I'm just going to kind of go along these last few pieces here before we get to the etiquette piece, resources. The next piece is keep assignments, or keep notes rather. And so these are fantastic. I love Google Keep, and most people that know anything about Google products they use Keep notes regularly. I use them for work, for my piece as an instructional coach. Or an instructional technology specialist. I use them for my grocery list. If I travel, I'm using a Keep note. I'm going to put my itinerary on there. I'm going to put links to things. I'm going to include all kinds of stuff. I use them for my Costco list, my grocery list, all kinds of things. And so this may be one of the biggest components of staying organized, and it's built right into Gmail. And as I put right here, I'm going to go ahead and show you this slide. Keep notes. Let me just jump over here. There is an app for that. And so this can be a great way to share all kinds of lists, and you can be shared on those lists with your child, which is really, really great. So they can create a list and you can kind of look at that. Hey, did you knock out this or that? What's coming up? Because you put a little note right here. Do you need some help with that? Where are you? Those little check-ins would be fantastic if you're using those Keep notes. And that's my plan for my son starting next year, because he's going to need that help with that organization piece going into 6th grade. And so let's look at some pieces right here. So when you click on this, and again, this may be kind of disappeared over here, and all you have to do to expand that section is just click the icon and it pops up. So I can take a quick note and I can jot some things down. So I've done that down here, and then I can also create a new list. And the difference is, as you can see, this is a note where I just made a note to myself, and this is a checklist. Something important to note is you can actually pin this. So if this is something that your child may be working on a list of something, maybe he's doing that project and he needs to get some things knocked off that list, he can pin that so it stays there. Or maybe there's some reminders, or maybe it's some information they need regularly for access, whatever it may be for a class or something. They can pin that, and it's in their Gmail account. It's right here. And so to create a new note, you just click plus, and you can type in the title and the note, And that's that. For a checklist, you just click on your list. Same process. It's super simple. And then you generate a list like this right here. To pin anything, you just click the pin. To take it off, you uncheck the pin. So I can go through and I can say, I'm done with that piece. I'm done with that. I love it because it puts a strike through and shows you what you've already checked off from that list. So how great is that? So you can actually go in and say, hey, so it looks like you checked off your list, the paints and all that. What did you put for that paint? You know how essential that follow-up is with our kids. What did you pack in your lunch? Let's take a look at that. So what did you put in there for your project? What materials did you gather? So we're always asking those questions. So this is a really great follow-up. I love this piece built into to Gmail. So this is definitely worth looking at. And either way, I would still download. My recommendation to you is to download the Keep application for your phone. Do that now and get that installed. That way you have access to this. And we do have a previous webinar, I believe, on Keep. And so take a look at that in our little resources or videos, or our little bank of videos, and see if you can get some information on Keep. If you'd like to know more, you can always use that video. So anyway, this is a fantastic resource to include in your Gmail account. All right, let me see here. I'm going to jump over. And so here we are with tasks, and I just have the little slide. I was just going to, oops, did I grab everything here? No. Sorry, folks, it's coming back. There we go. Let me jump to this guy. So these are tasks. So the next piece is tasks. It's very similar to Keep Notes. But this is kind of a good way on the fly where you can actually take an email and you can drag it over to or include it in a task. So this can help your child kind of remember, oh, I've got to do that piece, or I've got this email I need to do, and this is a task I need to knock out. And so you can actually take and link an email into a task, and that's what I've done with these pieces here. And I'll explain more when I show you this in just a minute. So tasks are a great way to keep up with important emails, right? So as I've stated here, you can set those reminders for assignments and assessments, any of the special tasks. You can create them. They don't have to be linked from an email. You can create them on your own. But once an email is selected, like once you check any email in the inbox, you get this icon right here. And that icon will link that email in a task. And then at that point, your child can go through and they can actually assign a date or a reminder for the time and date if they needed to. But that's a good way to kind of keep up with, oh, I've got to respond to that email, or maybe I got to think about this some more because this is a big project. I need to ask some questions about. So this is a good way to get those reminders out of your inbox and posted over here. They'll still stay in the inbox. The email will still stay in the inbox, but it'll give you a good reminder via tasks. So let's take a look at that real quick. So here again, if these buttons are missing, or that side panel is missing, you just go over here to the icon, and I'm going to click on tasks. And here is my task that I have assigned. And it's just like Keep and any of the features. It's Google, so it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. So if I want to edit this task, I can do that. This is one that went off at 9:30 today. So I can check those boxes and mark complete, and that task will go away. And so what I mentioned earlier is that if I have an email in my inbox, I can click that email, and then from there, see if you can find it here. I'm looking for the task button. You guys see that? Go up here. There's my add to tasks. So I just check that box, and look at that, it appears right over here. So think about some useful pieces with this. How could this be helpful for your child? Maybe there's that really important email, or maybe they're just in correspondence and they want to make sure they don't forget. This is a really neat feature. And again, sit down with your child and say, hey, these are some features. How do you see this working for you? And sometimes, like with my soon-to-be sixth grader, sometimes those conversations with a sixth grader are not that different from a 16-year-old's conversations. So it's just kind of funny. But it's very true. And so sit down with them and say, hey, so what do you think would be helpful with this piece? How do you see this being useful? Let's try it out, give it a shot, and get some feedback, follow up with them and say, hey, so was that useful? Did you like that? Is it something you think you could use? And, oh, okay, cool. kids always surprise us as parents. I know that, and as teachers as well, they come up with some great ideas because, they're clever sometimes. So have that conversation with them about how they can best use that piece for a task from their inbox. Let me just move this out of the way. And again, if you have any questions, just kind of shoot those over in our chat feature, and Lauren can help tackle that. Okay, so this last piece is really about etiquette for students, and there's so much content out there for etiquette for students and using email. And the key thing is making sure the kids can distinguish. Sorry, let me get this back over here. Apologize. Yeah, so they can distinguish what's appropriate and what's not. So, depending on the class sizes, busy schedules, in person or online, academic accountability with teachers, it can be difficult to have those conversations with teachers and peers even. So students will need their message to be understood in a clear and respectful way. And sometimes email may be the most appropriate and effective way to communicate. So it's obviously important to distinguish between communication on social media and a well-written email, right? So that's a key thing there. So they're obviously two very vastly different things. And we find that students don't always make that distinction. And so my son the other night was on one of the magnet schools, and some of the kids, including him, were using the chat feature. And it was kind of an awakening moment, like, wow, I need to have a conversation with how my son represents himself in that type of forum. And I'm like, oh, so we had a conversation, and sure enough, the next time he had the opportunity to join a chat, it helped. So we leave no stone unturned, and this is one of those things we definitely want to cover this piece with our kids and talk about how we're going to effectively communicate with our teachers, because teachers, they love that when their students can send a kind and respectful email. And on that note, here, by the way, here's a great reference: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps on sending an email. This is a TCEA link. You can pop open to this, right? Sorry, over here. This is a TCEA link, and you can pop over here and look at this piece, and it shows you, step by step, what's age appropriate, how this works. So how to set the greetings and closure. And sometimes we, as parents, we're overwhelmed with a lot of pieces as we're teaching our kids just how to be, a functioning student. And so this is a really good set of guidelines on following the email. I'm like, do I follow all these email guidelines? I think I do. Hopefully by now I do. And so anyway, we look at these key pieces, and we want to include those in those emails. So this is really a speed read. And like I mentioned before, sit down with your child and look over this. These are some key things. What stands out? What's going to be the hardest for you on this? Is there a piece that really is going to be more difficult than the others? So let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation. What could that look like? Or maybe I'm going to help you with some training wheels here. Maybe I'm going to help you draft that first email, and we'll look at that. But it's really just make sure you put the emphasis on, we have to sound respectful and classy and nice and kind. It's the key thing, right? We want to always be kind, especially with our teachers. They work really hard and they love our students. So we definitely want to have that kindness in there. So that's a really important piece. Over here, this is actually one of my favorites. I think this is Arizona State University. And so I like this because it's not just the etiquette piece, but what I really liked is the tone, like I just mentioned, being kind. How often as adults do we consider those things when we send an email? Like, man, that sounded really harsh, especially if it's all caps, right? So we want to look at those pieces and make sure that that they're in check when we're actually sending that email. So it's just really great too. So again, this could be a conversation piece. Just, hey, let's look at this together. What do you think stands out? Here's a bad example. Here's a good example. Look at that. There's like an introduction, and it has your information, or you're addressing somebody and you have a nice closure there. And so just a visual may help, right? So this should look something like this. And so don't forget to, sorry about that. Don't forget to consider these pieces. And so this really is a great component of what we're talking about. And again, this is linked directly on the slide. So either of these pieces, you can just click and link, and you're good to go. All right, so again, if you have any questions or comments, you can always send those through the chat. So the last piece I wanted to leave you with here before we in this presentation is really some tips. So maybe you're here and you want to get some tips. These are tips from Google. This is what it looks like. You have Google beginner tips, and these are some general things that you can include in looking at Gmail with your child, and so on and so forth. So you kind of get the idea. There's beginner, there's intermediate, and advanced tips from Google. And right here is just an overview video if you'd like to look at that at Tech Cafe. I just thought that was kind of useful. You can look at how this one individual kind of goes through the different pieces of Gmail. He does address. Oops,
Hi, this is Bright.
He does address adding a signature, which is not really necessary for your child as long as they're putting their name properly at the bottom. Excuse me. And so, and I would never include their social media on any email, right? So make sure you just that's kind of noteworthy. Let's not include any personal information like that, but let's just at least have the proper form. So, but there are some really good pieces in here. And again, I mentioned previously that I'd have the A to Z resources available again right here. So check this slide out, go through those pieces, and maybe there's some things that kind of like, oh, I can learn more about this or that. All right, let's see here. And lastly, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to connect with us, pretty please. We always want you to stay connected with us so we can share resources like these videos, kind of give you guys the heads up on what we have to offer in our department. We're working hard for you and your children. So if you have any comments, suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. So please give us your feedback and touch base and just kind of stay in the know with us here at Northeast in the Instructional Technology Department. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.